Success as an ACN independent business owner, IBO, is not guaranteed, but rather influenced by an individual's specific efforts. No one can be guaranteed success as an IBO. This presentation was recorded during the Adelaide International event, March 20th to 22nd, 2015. This presentation may contain information regarding the ACN compensation plan, promotions and product pricing, which has changed since the date of the recording. Views expressed and any claims or comparisons made by IBOs presenting are theirs and not ACN's. Please check acnpacific.com.au and IBO back office for up-to-date information.
You know, when I first got started in ACN, I remember my mentor sitting me down, and he had a very brief conversation with me that really helped me to reevaluate where I was in life and where I could be headed for my future. And here's the first question he asked me, and I want to have that conversation with you today as well. He said, Danny, you can't change the lifestyle overnight, but he said you have the power to change the direction of your life overnight. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, Danny, think about where you were 5 years ago. And he said, think about where you are right now, the lifestyle you live right now. He said, how much of it have changed? And at the time, I thought about it, and not much have changed. My family bank account balance was about the same, and the size of house we were living was about the same. And the cars that we drove was about the same, and the problems that we were dealing with in life was about the same. And back then, I didn't know there was anything wrong with it, but he asked me the next question. He said, Danny, where do you think you're going to be 5 years from now? And I started thinking about it, and I realized not much was going to change. So me being in the same lifestyle 5 years ago and now, it didn't bother me that much, but to think that I have to be in the same position 5 years from now, that started to scare me. I didn't want to deal with my current financial problems 5 years from now. Let me ask you a question. How many of you know somebody that's been dealing in same financial condition, that's been in a same financial position for over 5 years of time? By show of hands. How many of you guys know people that's been in a same lifestyle for 10 years of time? By show, how about 20 years? 20 years. It's almost like an auction. 25, anybody? 30. You know, we all know people that's been, they didn't like. Now, it's one thing if you like where you are financially and stay there 5, 10, 20 years later, but we all know people, they are not happy with where they are financially, but 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road, they're still in the same position, and sometimes they're in a worse position. True or not true? And here's what my mentor said, Danny, you can't change your lifestyle overnight. I know we all came to ACN event. We got inspired. We got a lot of good ideas. But just because we made new commitments this weekend and just because we got new information and inspiration this weekend doesn't mean that when you go home, your house is going to triple in size. Doesn't mean that when you go to the parking lot or your car is going to change. Lifestyle doesn't change. He said, however, you could change the direction of your life instantly in split second. And it may not seem like anything have changed, but by changing direction, if you could stay the course 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you could end up in a completely different place. You know, 11 years ago, I was a very young person that was just living off of my parents. I didn't have much money, but because of ACN, in short amount of time, we were able to create financial freedom and time freedom and be able to take vacations with our family and do a lot of things for my church and do a lot of things personally that would have never been possible if I kept working at where I was working at prior to ACN. See, I realized that a lot of SVPs and RVPs in ACN, they didn't become a million. They didn't become a success story because they were so great. No, yeah, they plugged into the system. Yes, they did their part, but the reality is it's because we plugged into a great system, a vehicle of ACN. You put an average person like myself and many of us in this room in a special vehicle like ACN that's been created by these incredible 4 co-founders of ACN. Let me tell you something. I met a lot of entrepreneurs around the world. There's nobody like these 4 gentlemen who started ACN. Mr. Robert Stevanovsky, Mr. Greg Provenzano, Mr. Mike, and Mr. Tony Kupitz. I mean, I've known them for 11 years now as I've been in ACN. I'm telling you, they care about our opportunity. They care about this company more than anybody in the world. They work harder even still today after 22 years. Every time I visit the home office in Charlotte, they're always there in the morning, late at night. I mean, they're always constantly investing their time and effort and resources to make our opportunity better within ACN. It's absolutely amazing that we get to participate in the vehicle that they've made, in my opinion, the greatest opportunity on the planet, the sexiest opportunity on the planet, fastest vehicle there is on the planet for average people like you and I to take advantage of. Let's give our co-founders and ACN another big round of applause. ACN is that sports car in the life race, and we could win. See, now we already have the vehicle. You don't have to come up with one. No, ACN already exists. This opportunity, this vehicle is available for every single one of us. So if you want to win the race in ACN, if you want to win in ACN, just like I talked about yesterday, you got to change your dream and you got to change your vision so it could change you, so you could change your life and change your reality. Now, I want to share some vision, and I want to talk about some dreams that was in place 21, 22 years ago, and 4 years ago, 5 years ago, so we can understand what's possible. Think about it. 21, 22 years ago, I guess almost 22 years ago now, 22 years ago, ACN was just a dream. 22 years ago, ACN was just a vision of those four co-founders. But today, this is the picture we see. This is, a lot of you, how many have ever been to a North American International Convention by show of hands? Is that incredible? If you've never been to one, in the future, if you get a chance to participate, you go to the convention and that's what you see. But let me tell you something, ACN didn't start that big. 21 years ago, it was just a vision, it was just a dream. Why? Because 21 years ago, ACN's very first convention only had 300 people there. And because they were so new, I heard that, I wasn't there, but I heard that I couldn't have been there. I would have been like 10. But you know, I mean, but I heard the first convention, they had 300 people there. And in the morning, the culture wasn't there yet. So 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, only half of them showed up because they were still sleeping. So 21 years ago, this was just a vision. This was just a dream for the co-founders. But think about it, look around. There's already a lot of people here, way more, multiple times bigger and more than how ACN started 21 years ago at their very first convention. And that's where they are today. Where do you think you could be 21 years from now? Where do you think ACN Pacific could be 21 years from now? Let me tell you my personal story that I got to experience. 4 years ago, ACN launched into ACN Korea 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. We launched ACN Korea a little over 4 years ago, and this was after being launched for a few months. We had our very first national event, which had a little over 300 people there. And you could see right there on the picture, that's Mr. Mike Kupitz, who came out to do an event for us in Korea. The room had almost 1,200 chairs, but there was only 300-something people there. There's a lot of empty chairs in that room. And that was ACN Korea's event 4 years ago. 2 months ago on January 24th, so 4 years ago, ACN Korea had a vision and dream, but not much as a reality. You guys following me so far? But exactly 4 years later, January 24th, this was our convention in ACN Korea. 4 years ago, empty room with 800 empty chairs with 300 people in a room. And just 2 months ago, January 24th, we had almost 12,000 people attending ACN Korea Convention. So here's a question for you. If in 4 years of time, if that could happen to Korea, a country, energy hasn't even been deregulated yet. You know, Korean IBOs, ACN representatives wish they had the products and services that we get to market in Pacific. They wish they had the opportunity that we have available here right now in ACN Pacific. You have no idea how amazing the opportunity is in ACN Pacific. It's absolutely incredible. And let me tell you some of the success stories that happened in the last 4 years of time. In just short 4 years of time, there has been over 100,000 representatives who got started in ACN. I could tell that everybody in Pacific thinks very big, because usually in other countries, when I talk about 100,000 IBOs in 4 years, they get impressed and they say, wow, or they clap or something. But like, you guys say, oh, 100,000, like in 4 years? You even talk about that? That's embarrassing. I could tell you guys are big thinkers. I could tell I could tell everybody here is like thinking, wait, well, I got it. I got you. I'm sorry. I'm being embarrassing. And I tell you, a lot of my friends, ACN leaders in Korea now, they love cars. And now, let me make this very clear. It's not about cars. It's not about big homes. It's not about any of that. But it definitely is all about freedom to go out there and do what you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want, for whoever you want, however you want. True or not true? Freedom is, many of us leaders in ACN, we're not driven by materialistic things, but we're definitely driven by freedom. And a lot of them, they decide to go out there and enjoy racing and cars, and a lot of them have improved their lifestyle in a big way. And I want to show you a picture. I mean, these are some of the leaders in Korea in the last 4 years of time that have achieved a lifestyle that is, as I mentioned yesterday, better than their dreams 4 years ago or 3 years ago, 2 years when they first got started. One of the gentlemen, Mr. Wu, Senior Vice President, Circle of Champions member, who's been with ACN for 3.5 years. His dream car for 40 years were these exotic sports cars he could never afford. His dream car for the last 10 years was a McLaren SLR. He couldn't afford it in other jobs or business ventures that he had. Took him exactly 2.5 years to go out there and fulfill his dream car and get himself a nice Mercedes SLR McLaren, which is in United States, it's a $750,000 vehicle. Once again, I could tell that in Pacific, everybody thinks so big. You're like, I don't see no jets up there. What are you showing? I got it. I understand your point. Now, let me tell you one thing in common about every single person on that picture. One thing in common about every single one of them. You know what it was? You know what it is? 4 years ago, they had a lot of dreams, but no money. One thing in common about every single one of them is that I know every single one of them personally, and they were all broke. Matter of fact, some of them, they were so broke, if somebody would have robbed them, it would have been a practice. You guys understand? I mean, they were beyond broke, a lot of them 4 years ago. And I know the lifestyle they get to enjoy today. I know the family vacations they get to take today. I know what they've been able to do for their parents, what they've been able to do for their kids, and what the education programs and now they've been able to provide for their family members that they couldn't do 4 years ago. I know the charities they get to participate today that they couldn't 4 years ago. Why? Because they chose a different vehicle. Why? Because they made a commitment. And here's another thing about every single one of them. One thing, the second thing that's in common about every single one of them is that they all never done ACN before they did ACN. I talk to people and some people tell me, they say, man, I've never done anything like this. I said, of course, like every senior vice president in ACN has never done ACN before they did ACN. So if you've never done this, you're on the right track. Of course you've never done this. Could you do it? Of course you can. Another thing in common about all of them is the fact that they were hungry and they had a desire and they had a great work ethic and they were coachable. They didn't question the system because they knew that co-founders who created the system, they knew better than they did. Why? Because results of the co-founders were better than their lives. So they were coachable and they were hungry and they had a strong desire. And they put work ethic into it like none other. And in 4 years of time, and they created an incredible lifestyle change, not overnight. It didn't happen in 30 days. It didn't happen in 90 days. But in 4 years of time, they've been able to go out and change their lifestyle for better. And I'm not sharing that with you to brag about their story. I'm sharing all this story with you and testimonies with you to brag about your opportunity ACN, because I believe same success stories, if not better, stories could be created in ACN Pacific in the next 4 years of time. And if you believe that with me, give ACN a bigger round of applause. And give yourself the bigger round of applause. So here's the next question for you. Today, that was ACN's vision 21, 22 years ago. That was ACN Korea's vision and dream 4 years ago. So today, what is your vision? Today, what's your dream? Where are you going to be in year 2019? We know the reality of ACN worldwide today. We know the reality of ACN Korea today. Year 2019, what is your reality going to be? 10 years from now, year 2025, what is your reality going to be? You could decide what your reality is going to be like year 2019, 4 years from now, and 10 years from now, year 2025. How do you make that happen? Go out there and think of those realities, and here's all you have to do. Make a commitment that you're going to make that a reality for you. Not just a dream, not just a hope. You're not going to end it there. No, you're going to turn it into reality. How do you do that? Make a commitment. Tell the person sitting next to you, you got to make a commitment. Tell the person sitting on the other side, you got to make a commitment. You're going to make a commitment. Now, what kind of commitment? Let me explain. In true commitment, listen carefully now, this is very important. True commitment has these two things in place. Number one, true commitment is unconditional. True commitment is unconditional. Imagine this. See, now I've been married for 9 years. I have 3 beautiful children. But imagine 9 years ago, when I was getting married, imagine we're there and minister's there and minister asks, hey, do you accept her as your wife? Imagine I say this. Yes, as long as, and I put a list of conditions before I said yes. Would that even make sense, yes or no? No, it doesn't make sense. See, true commitment is unconditional. Don't commit to this just because, hey, I'm committed to make that a reality for me and my family 2019 and 2025, as long as everybody I talk to only says yes to me. As long as the people I'm starting with right now, they don't quit on me. See, as long as things are easy for me. Here's a reality. Hey, you know what? Some more markets and products and services may deregulate. Some may not deregulate. Who cares? Some more new great products may come up. Some great new products may not show up for the next couple of years. Who cares? Some great people may show up in your team next month or next year, and they may not show up next month or next year. Who cares? I'm looking at your faces, and some of you look like you care. I can control what's going to happen to deregulation. I can control what's going to happen in the telecom industry. I can control what's going to happen in the energy market. I can control a lot of this stuff. I can't control how the economy is or global economy. Can't control any of that. But here's what I could control. I could control how many people I talk to today. I could control how many people I invite to a presentation today. I could control how many people I go out there and share our opportunities or products with. I could control how many people I could invite to an event, a convention or regional event or weekly event or whatever event's going on. That I could control. So make a commitment and make sure it's unconditional. And number two, make sure it has no expiration date. A lot of people say, man, I'm committed for the next 6 months of time. Once again, going back to my wedding story, imagine minister said, do you accept Yoonjung as your wife? I said, yes, I do, for the next 5 years and 9 months and 3 days. How would that have, do you think that wedding would have finished well? Of course not. You can't have an expiration date when you're making a commitment, true or not true? If you're making a commitment, if you truly want to make this happen for you, if you want to make your reality better than your dreams right now, if you really want to be one of those leaders in Asia Pacific as well as ACN Global, your RVP story, your SVP story inspiring tens of thousands of people around the world, and you're making an impact in the world in a positive way. If you want to be one of those leaders in the future, you got to make a commitment right now. Make sure it's unconditional and you don't have an expiration date attached to it. If you can make that commitment this weekend, right here in Adelaide, Australia, I'm telling you folks, next 4 years could be the greatest 4 years of your life up to this point. Next 10 years could be the greatest 10 years that you have lived up to this point. I've been with ACN for over 11 years now, folks. I'm telling you, I wouldn't change or regret or exchange one situation or one thing about my 11 years of my life, because that's what made me who I am today. I get to experience the world like nobody else that I know. I get to, today, because of ACN, I get to spend quality time with my kids. I go on a date with my wife and three of my kids, at least one-on-one date with all of them once a month. I get to spend all day. You know, and my son loves cars just like I do. And whenever I'm in Las Vegas, and I always ask my kids, because we take them to this school and we have to drop them off and pick them up, I have to ask my son every day because he cares and the other two girls, they don't really care. And I say, what car do you want to be dropped off this morning? Having more choices in life. He said, today, Daddy, can you drop me off in a Ferrari? I said, no problem, son. I got my hat on, sideways. You know, I got my shirt on, you know, and shorts on, and I drop off. And I could tell the teachers at school, kindergarten, you know, the school, they look at me weird every time I drop off my kid. They're like, don't this guy have a job? Like, I drop him off at 8:30. I pick him back up sometimes at 11:30. I pick him back up at 3:30. And they look at me like I'm weird because I got my hat, you know, and like, don't this guy have a, and I could totally tell. They think something's going on. I could tell. But, you know, we don't talk about it. But here's what I know. If I was still working at Starbucks, would that have been possible? Yes or no? No, it's the vehicle. And here's the great news for all of us. We already found a vehicle. You already chose ACN. You're already here. You're already here. All you have to do is make a strong commitment, unconditional, with no expiration date, and start doing and applying all the things that you're learning this weekend, and start taking action in building a team and building a customer base, and go out there and duplicate and be a great leader for your team. If you do that, folks, next 4 to 10 years of time is going to be absolutely amazing. You know, let me share something with you. I know being at an event like this, all of us, our dreams and our goals and our vision is more clear than ever. And I could tell that you already feel that. I feel a bigger and better energy right now than I did yesterday. I could feel it. I know we see it clearly right now. But here's the deal. There are going to be some good weather days and bad weather days. But let me ask you a question. Just because I know we have some foggy days sometimes. I don't know, maybe Adelaide never get foggy, but you know, a lot of places around the world it gets foggy. Australia, do you guys get fog sometimes? Okay. Here's a question for you. What if it gets foggy and there was a mountain in front of you, but one day you woke up and it's foggy? Now, obviously you can't see the mountain. Here's a question for you. Just because you can't see the mountain, does that mean it's not there? Just because you can't see the mountain, does that mean it's not there? No, it's still there. Let me promise you something. In ACN, our journey of ACN, we're going to have some good weather days. Like right now, it's clear. You could see yourself getting promoted on stage as a regional director, regional vice president, senior vice president. I could tell it's clear to many of you. You could see that it's clear, but guess what? You're going to have some days it's going to be foggy. You're not going to be able to see it. But whenever you run into situations where you can't see it, just remind yourself and just remember, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there no more. It's still there. It's still there. And I'm promising you right now, in time, always, weather clears up. Doesn't matter how bad the weather is, I'm telling you, in time, weather clears up. I remember when I was a qualified team trainer, when I was having challenges, my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, she sent me a text message, and I kept it for years. You know what he said? There's always a rainbow after the rain. Here's a reality. If something bad happens, always something good's gonna happen after. If somebody quits, somebody's gonna join. If you lose someone, somebody better comes out. As long as you're moving forward, as long as your commitment's real and you follow through, whether it's gonna clear up and you're gonna be able to see that mountain even closer and more clear than you did before the fog showed up. As long as you keep moving forward. Does that make sense to everybody? You know, here's a reality. Listen, in ACN, we all have our own life story book. We all have a book being written about us in ACN. And we not even in ACN, just in our life. We have our life, my life story book. For me, it's, 30-some years of my life story that's being written. And I get to decide what direction it goes. But when I was growing up, I used to love reading a lot of cartoon books. You guys like cartoon books? I used to love reading like Spider-Man and Batman. And do you guys have Spider-Man, Batman? You guys are looking at me like you have no idea what I'm talking about. And I remember I'll be reading the cartoon books and I get into it so much because I start to fall for the character and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember after a few pages and few chapters and a drama happens and there are the enemies just right there waiting and they set up this trap to take the main character out. You guys following me? And I remember reading those pages and I'm like telling Batman and telling Spider-Man, hey, don't go there. They're like waiting for you. Joker's right there. Like, he's going to kill you, and I remember getting all nervous and anxiety about it. And every time I run into those situations, you know what I used to do when I was a little kid? I used to just go to the end of the book. I'd be like, page 43, I'm like, what's happening? And I just look at the last chapter, last few pages to see if he's still alive or not. And after I realized that he survived and he made it and is still living, I'll come back to page 43 and I'll tell Batman when he's fighting and losing, I tell him, hang on, bro. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. You don't die right here. You're going to make it. Hang on. Keep it up. Keep fighting. Don't give up. Why? Because I knew the end of the book. I'm here to tell you right now that in ACN, we already know the end of every single one of your book as long as you finish the book. If you stop reading at page 43, your book ends as a bad story. But if you keep moving forward and if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, folks, I know the end of the book. You could be the next MD Rahman story. You could be the next Karen story. You could be the next Brian Sachs story. You could be the next Jamal story out in UK. You could be the next Mr. Wu story out of Korea. You could be the next Patrick Major story. You could be the next Simon Abud story of Canada. You could be the next Art Napolitano story. You could be the next George Zelicka story. You could be the next SVP and RVP success story as long as you keep moving forward, put one foot in front of the other, and remind yourself that you will make it, and remind yourself that your end of the book is happy ending with ACN. God bless all of you. Thank you very much. Let's take ACN Pacific to a whole another level, billion and beyond. God bless.